Cap, what is up?
Good morning, John.
Ooh, tilt the head. Tilt the head down a little bit. We got to see. We got to see the lid. We got to see what. There we go.
There
Yeah.
it is.
What have you thought so far about the folks that you are representing on your head? What have you thought so far about the experience as a mogul in training at Rhode Island FC?
It's going all right. It's been a good start to the season, not a great one. We've had our first two games, two draws, both winnable games. I suppose both were losable. But the optimist in me looks
There
like
you go.
we could have won both games. Last two games have been away games. We've had the lead in both away games, which has been great. But our game last weekend, we played away at Tampa and got a shellacking in the second half. And it really wasn't a shellacking in terms of like play. We just had some bad mistakes that cost us. And so that's all right. We played Dell's team this weekend. So it'll be a good way for us to bounce back.
There we go. Shots fired. And he's only been in the booth for 2 minutes. How much of as this continues to be a learning experience for you, did you ever think that in all of the learning that's been going on and all of the build that you would be learning some of the lessons either on the field, off the field, or both, that you would be learning, whether it is patience or whether it is being driven crazy and trying to control your emotions about what's going on the field and sitting there and resisting the impulse to put on an RIFC jersey, kind of like Sasha did with Des Moines Menace in Open Cup? And are you having things that you're having to kind of sit there and bite your tongue about?
No. And I have to actually calm down some of the other board members where I'm like, guys, it's okay.
Wow.
Like, hey, one bad half, some mistakes from some guys, like it's all good. We'll be fine. Look at the positive side of things. So no, just trying to use my experience in that. I think the team has looked pretty good so far this year and dealing with a lot of difficult circumstances being a startup, right? And playing out of college and, not our own facility and all those types of things. So, no, I think it's been a good start and I'm not concerned about it, but for me, it's more learning how much I can help out the coaching staff versus kind of leave them be, and then not so much because I don't trust them, but just more like, hey, can I be of help? And so I watched the game a couple times last week and threw a couple videos to the coach and said, hey, you might want to bring these up with some of the defenders. We have a really good relationship, which is nice, Kano and I. So I feel okay doing that type of thing with him, especially.
Yeah, and I mean, it's in a way, it's a different kind of mentoring, because what you get to do is it's peer to peer in this case, where you're not trying to sit there and be this corporate overseer and go rawr, and you have to say it with the rawr, it's literally you're hovering over folks, and it's just like it's advice that you're giving because you see something and you want something to succeed, as opposed to in other situations with other individuals, the ego might be involved. And it's like, well, I know better, these kinds of things. This peer-to-peer stuff is really important, especially with something new like this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the coaching staff is really open to it, which is great. Right. I think they understand, like, hey, we're all on the same team. We're all in this for the same reason and want to have success. And nobody's trying to show up anybody else or step on anybody's toes. We all just want success.
We had the head coach of the U.S. men's futsal national team on before you this morning. They are getting ready for the CONCACAF championships in Nicaragua starting next week. They've got a week to train, and then I think on the 13th is when they kick things off, both literally and figuratively, chasing after a CONCACAF title. When it comes to doing other sports, I know that it's something that you recommend, and it's like, in the spring, hey, go and do other things. Don't do this 24/7, 365, and twice on Sunday, and do it 8 days a week, when you want to play the sport of soccer. Is there a sport that you didn't participate in when you were younger that you recommend now to help out those younger athletes and your mentees? It's like, I didn't do it, but I think this would help you. Or is there still just, okay, I think that this will help you. I did this and this will help as well. Was there something that you might have missed out on that you're helping the next generation with? Or is it still the same thoughts that you had when you were younger that helped out your balance?
Well, I don't think that there's any particular sport that'll help you become better in soccer. I think that you can take things from any sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've mentioned before, baseball, I was always thinking, what am I going to do with the ball when it comes to me? I think basketball, any team sport, you really can apply a lot of things to than soccer when you're playing soccer. So I think that you can learn a lot from any sport, honestly. I think if there was one sport that I would have enjoyed or got some benefit from that I didn't do is swimming.
Okay.
Just because I think it's a great cardiovascular workout and it can get you so strong as well. And it doesn't put any stress on the body. I mean, you know what I mean? It's super difficult. I'm not saying it's not tough.
I mean, someone who's, 712 years old like me, I can go into a pool and I can do hydroaerobics, and that way you're not getting as much strain on your knees. You can run in a pool, and there are added benefits that you don't have the stress and strain of, pounding the turf with tennis shoes that you could do in a pool or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And I think as far as like off-season workouts and things like it's such a great way to get a good workout in. Swimming is just so challenging for those of us, especially that don't do it much. So tiring. So that would have been one, but I'm just because I played most of the other sports outside of American football.
And I mean, you get to broaden your horizons and you get to go in different directions. And as you said, you might stumble across something that is beneficial that you wouldn't have thought of initially. And I'm down with the idea of the swimming part, because once again, you think that it makes it fun almost, where, like if you're in a pool and you can sit there and you can, mess around in a pool a little bit, but if you still get your laps in, you still would do whatever. Having fun in that second activity or that third activity will almost act as, I think, a refresher when you go back to your primary activity in soccer. Yeah, I get to spend some time away. I get to do this. This helped me do this. This helped me do this. And now it almost gives you that fresher perspective when you go back to that first sport, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, right? You have to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to get much out of it, and you're not going to have long-term success for sure. The motivation will go away real quick. So, yeah, that's always number one. Is enjoying what you're doing, because you'll get the most out of it, obviously, when you're doing that. So, no doubt about it.
And I mean, when you go through these kinds of things and you're kind of figure out what works for you and all of that. I mean, at times I would imagine that, when you find those other things and we talk about it, you enjoy what you're doing and it applies to a larger picture. When it comes to feedback that you get from your mentees about the entire experience, 12 months a year. And I would imagine that your mentees are with you 12 months out of the year, right? It's not just an in-season thing. If they want to contact you in their off season, they can do that, right?
For sure.
Okay. So when they're not in their primary sports, are you still getting that off-season feedback about what's going on in their lives and those kinds of things? Or is it something literally that's like, it's that 9 months and I want to talk soccer 12 months out of the year? Or are they talking to you about those other things that they're not involved in the other 3 months or whatever?
Yeah, sometimes. I'd say more often they take the break, which is totally fine by us. And there's some kids that want to know, okay, what should I be doing during my break, and how can I still get better during this break, and what should I be doing? Type things where we have these conversations, and and as we gear up towards a season, we try and focus on goals and little things that we want to accomplish this season.
Yeah.
So that we make sure that we're just prepared and we've got an idea of what we want to do with the upcoming 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be. But there are definitely some kids that just want to get away and don't want to talk about soccer. And I respect the heck out of that.
Well, I mean, so then do you and Greg, how much learning do you guys get from your mentees? I mean, I know that it's a two-way street when it comes to feedback and everything, but do you learn from your mentees perspectives that you didn't have going into a situation? How much learning are you guys getting from your mentees? Because I know the mentees are learning a lot from you guys. What's the reverse?
Yeah, it's constant learning. I think that just understanding how to have conversations and how to figure out what this player or family wants to get out of these sessions and how comfortable they feel, and how do you approach a session with someone who doesn't want to talk at all.
Hmm.
I had a session a couple weeks ago with a young athlete who didn't want to be on the camera and didn't want to talk. And so I kind of had the conversation with dad, with the player on the side. And, that was unique. But you gotta have to meet some of the athletes where they are, right? You can't force these things, just like
Yeah.
we talk about having fun, right? I don't want anybody to be bored or hate getting in front of a camera and talking to me, because then they're not going to get anything out of it. We're wasting each other's time.
Yeah. And
So
and that's, I mean, I find that interesting that there's an athlete that you hope, that a mentee that you hope wants to learn, but for whatever reason they might be, they might be shy about the whole thing. It's like, just write me something. uh it seems like there are those times that is a challenge for a mentor, is trying to find the right way to get in touch with a mentee if they don't want to do things on camera, if they don't want to talk. I mean, there are teenagers that, in all situations, and you as a dad, I imagine, go through this too, that there are times in teenagers' lives where they don't want to talk about nothing. They'll come home, they'll come through the front door of the house, they'll close the door. They want to go upstairs and they just want to close the door to their bedroom and just kind of, be themselves and not want to talk to anybody. When it comes to knocking on that door for a mentee that doesn't want to, for whatever reason, they don't want to talk. Like I said, they could be shy about the whole thing. They're not there for it. They feel like they might have been pushed into it by their father, or by their parent. I mean, how much of a challenge is that for you to understand the context of it and talk to a parent and sit there and go, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? Let's get together here because I'm just here to help. How much of a challenge is that?
yeah, sometimes it is, because I think a lot of parents, they mean well, of course, but you can tell sometimes that it's being pushed on the child to, speak with us or do extra work, or, hey, my kid's not practicing enough on their own, and those types of things. And, honestly, in those situations, it's better that the parent is part of the conversation, so that I can speak to the kid, and the parent can hear like what types of things I'm talking to them about and what's important. Because I don't necessarily always address exactly what the parent wants, because maybe I think that they're stepping too hard on the child or whatnot, and it's like, hey, if the more that they're having fun, the more that they'll be motivated to go do that extra stuff, not being forced into doing it, type thing. So for sure, it's a balance, and that's definitely a challenging part of it. But getting back to your other point earlier about camera shy and
Yeah.
kids that don't want to just or maybe are awestruck or have no idea who we are, and
Oh,
don't care that way.
uh-huh.
We have Greg and I have thought about, like, maybe we should put together a kind of a package thing that someone could look at and go through on their own, where it's got like some videos and some teachings and some things that then they don't have to have a meeting with us. They
Yeah.
can do it on their own time and in their own space. And so we've had discussions about that, and sort of started to look into that and figure out how do we put something like that together, so specifically for people like that.
Well, and I think that would be a cool thing to add to the whole experience, because you mentioned the idea of being awestruck. And I would think that for someone who is a fan of Atlanta United, talking here in our footprint, that someone who knows and they grew up watching Atlanta United and they might have been an 8, 9, or a 10-year-old athlete, that they know about you and they know about Greg and they know about, you and confetti and hoisting a trophy and all these kinds of things here in town. And they might be a little intimidated by those kinds of things. So I would think that, trying to find that icebreaker, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, that they might be awestruck. And it's like, look, that individual is over there. This is who I am. And I think maybe that the BioBlast kind of a thing, that the portfolio that you and Greg are thinking about, I think would help in some aspects where, hey, this is me. This is what I've done. But now I'm here to assist you in what's going on. You might be a little, you might be a little awestruck. You might remember, moments at Mercedes-Benz and things. But right now, I'm just Mr. Parkhurst and Mr. Garza, and I'm here to help you. I mean, that seems like that sometimes that might be an icebreaker that might be a little difficult to get through at times, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. And I just smirked to myself because I think that's the most awkward part of a conversation with a new mentee is, do they know anything about my career or everything about my career, or somewhere in between?
Yeah.
So I don't ever assume that anyone knows anything about my career, because now it's been 4 years since I retired. It's been a while. So, some kids know everything, and there's some kids that have no clue who I am, which is fine. But in those cases, I feel like I need to give them a little bit of my background so that I'm not just some Joe Schmo over here talking to them that, why the hell am I talking to this guy on a camera, right? That my parents signed me up for. So that's a little awkward every time.
It's Joe Schmo from Beyond Goals Mentoring at BG Mentoring on the Twitters. He's Joe Schmo and I'm just John. But no, and I think that dealing with those mentees in the extremes, it's like, who is this joker? Or, I saw him growing up. And it's trying to draw those extremes into the middle and have them try and understand the greater idea. It's like, no, we're here to help you. Yeah, you might remember, me as Michael Parkhurst. It's like the old Simpsons gag. It's like, you may remember me from movies like 310 to Yuma, one of those kinds of things with Chet Brockton, and trying to, the old driver's ed films, those kinds of things. But it's like, dealing in the extremes with an individual, you've got to draw them into the middle and say, look, I'll come, whatever image you have of me, I'm coming to meet you here in the middle so we can both learn together. And so I think that's key to this whole thing. But yeah, I legitimately, does anybody think of you or Greg as a Joe Schmo? Seriously? Are they over there at no knowledge base at all?
I mean, when we're talking to kids that are 12 years old, shoot, I retired when they were 8. So there's no ill will from our perspective. I get it.
No, but it's just like, but I think that maybe the BioBlast or, the dossier, it's like, here's who I was when I was a professional athlete. I think that could help those that are just sitting there thinking, great, I've got Joe Schmo as a mentor here, and that might be the side heading for Beyond Goals Mentoring. Joe Schmo, mentor, I mean, but
Joe Schmoes talking soccer.
Yeah, there you go. Two Joe Schmoes, two Joe Schmoes talking soccer. But I mean, but no, you present an interesting point here. It's like there's everybody out there that is giving advice. I mean, you literally, I mean, it could be you, it could be Greg at Beyond Goals, it could be, it could be Jurgen Klinsmann giving advice, it could be Bob Bradley giving advice, it could be Clint Dempsey or Don Ovan or whomever giving advice. And it's up to you and Greg on a daily basis, I would think, to sit there and say, here's why hearing from us is beneficial. It's almost like you've got to put yourself out there all over again for folks that think that you and Greg are just two Joe Schmoes talking soccer.
Yeah. And that's honestly the worst part about, I dislike doing that above anything else. I hate selling, and I hate even the promotion aspect of it, just because I feel like, and I know that we need to do it just because what we're doing is for good, and we're trying to help people. And obviously we've got some knowledge in the area, but I always am like, well, if people want the help, I'm here to help. Like I don't want to force anything or do anything like that. I'm like, I'm here to help, and this is where you can find me. But I can't stand that part of things.
Well,
like I should be working with the Crew Academy here, but I hate like pushing to say, hey, let me help you. I can help you type thing. I'm like, hey, if you guys want it, I'm here.
yeah, well, and I think that plays into the idea of the human ego, because there are some that will sit there and they'll puff out their chest and go, hey, look at me. I did all these things, and that's why you should come and see me. And I'll teach you about soccer. And then there are others who aren't as wrapped up into their athlete selves. And it's not about the ego. It's about the effort, and it's about the end of the end game, honestly, where you're here to help. And it's a delicate balance about self-promotion and then feeling uncomfortable because you think that there's too much ego involved about, you're announcing your name. Hi, it's me. I'm here to do this. I mean, I get it. I completely get it. The balance of, folks thinking that it's an ego play versus genuinely wanting to help folks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Does that drive you crazy?
It does. That's why Greg does it far better than I do. He grinds a lot more than I do, and without him, we wouldn't have 3/4 of the business that we do, or clients and things. So, he's much better about it than I am. We've all got our strengths and weaknesses, I suppose.
Well, but that's why I think that, that you and Greg do really well in that Venn diagram of two Joe Schmoes talking soccer, is because you each bring something different to the table. And when you combine the two of you in that Venn diagram, there is that middle part that is the same thing, but that the two 50% come together, and you guys do a really good job because you come at it from different angles each time.
Indeed, John.
All right. So before you go, one more thing. This week, Atlanta United is going to play in a unique environment. It's not quite the U12 futsal pitch at Yankee Stadium, which is apparently regulation size, air quotes, regulation size. They're going to Citi Field, and NYC says, you could, in theory, at Citi Field, you could be you're going from the first baseline down the left field foul line. NYC takes those dimensions that are regulation at Yankee Stadium, and they bring them over to Flushing, Queens, and Citi Field. What's it like playing in a bandbox? What's it like playing in a U12 futsal pitch? Does it drive players crazy? How much of an adjustment is it? And what's it like playing in an environment like that is just odd and it's off the rails as it seems every time out?
Yeah, there's a few unique challenges to playing at New York. And one is the field is like sideways. It's like crooked in that when you look at it, it's weird. It's on an angle. So when you're on the bench and you're looking across the field, you're not looking at a straight line. It's like crooked. So the offside lines is weird. Right. When you look across, you have to look on an angle. Otherwise you're not looking at the right line.
Yeah.
It's weird. So that throws me off every time I play there. But then it's a weird balance between it's a small field and things can happen quickly and they can close you down fast versus I still can play. I can still have a little bit of time to play because New York City does. Somehow everyone else feels like they can't play at that field. And yet New York City, especially under Vieira, they played every time. They always played out, right? They weren't just kicking the ball long. They had space to play, but the away team never does. I don't know. It's baffling. So that's definitely a home field advantage for City. Yeah, but it's difficult to go there and get a good result. So, I feel like you just make it ugly and grind and know that it's going to be gross, and that's okay. We just come out of there with a point. And now I saw that we're missing a couple starters in the attacking side of things, which will make it even more challenging. So, Yeah, it's
Yep.
tough, very tough.
Yep. No Gigi, no Shonda up front this weekend. What's going on with Beyond Goals?
Quiet week. Greg's on vacation. I spent last week down in Fort Lauderdale with the Gressel family. So it was great to catch up with them and see them, and went to Miami training, and then they've got a beautiful facility down there as well. Really nice setup, and went to their game, and it was a good atmosphere at the game too. Enjoyed the time down there. My son got very lucky and met a certain number 10.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and it was good to see Tata on staff.
I was going to say, did Tata recruit you for the back line considering how injured they are?
He did make a joke about it, and I said, hey, I think if you want to win, you don't want to ask me twice.
I know. I just have this vision of that conversation. I don't doubt that for a second.
But they're doing great. It was good to see him and good to catch up. So, and then Greg and I have another video analysis session that we've been doing kind of, I don't know, about twice a month maybe. We've got one this Sunday night where we're focusing on wide midfielders and wingers, where we just show defensive and offensive clips and kind of just show of, hey, movement type stuff, things you should look for, crosses, just generalized information for kids. So, and those have been great. We enjoy doing that.
Looking forward to it. Cap, as always, thanks for pulling back the curtain on what's going on there at Beyond Goals and letting us know what's going on at Rhode Island FC. Rightly said, you got yours on your head. I got mine over my left shoulder. So there we go. It's always right there. Thanks as always, my friend. Be safe. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good, John. Have a great weekend.